Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the lesson plans inside of the Decodable Reader's Vault and the shifting to Science of Reading membership. And all of the lesson plans are specific to each book, but they're also editable. So you can kind of take out what you don't need, add in certain things that you might want to do instead. It's completely up to you and flexible. And we're going to kind of show that today. Megan's going to be doing our presentation today. And Megan is very important inside of the memberships. She does a lot of the making of the materials, very experienced with SOAR, and she's like my #1 gal. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah. All right. So as Jenny said, today we're going to talk about the lesson plans that we added to the membership. And so I'll just kind of go over some of the components of our membership lesson plans and then show you where you can find them in the membership. And then if there's any questions at all, we'll go ahead and answer those at the end. So today I'm going to kind of walk through the editable lesson plan using kindergarten, decodable, Nick and Jack. Essentially, what you'll see right here when you look at each lesson plan is that there's a spot where you can put in the group names for your students. So this is kind of where Jenny had said that it's editable. You can use this on your PowerPoint and just type in the names. You can also print it out and write the names. We have it as a PDF form as well in the membership. And so another area that you can edit is this notes section right here. And for each of the sections that I'm going to go over today, there may be some notes that might come to mind as you're watching it. And so if you want to pause the video, if you're watching the recording, and print out a lesson maybe that you're going to be working on, and you can kind of jot some notes down there too. So you can use it that way as well. So aside from these note boxes and then the group names, there's also a space for the date. So you can go ahead and put in the date that you will be using that. And then everything else you'll see here has the title of the text, the lesson, and it'll zoom in just a few minutes so you can see it a little bit more up close. But it has all of those areas as well: warm-up, phonics skills, decodable words and heart words, section for word work, the decodable text, comprehension, and dictation. And so I'm going to kind of explain how this could fit into a 30-minute block and how it supports the science of reading. So first we have a section for the warm-up. So again, this is a kindergarten decodable where it is going over the CK digraph. So you can see right here, this is the text that they will be reading, Nick and Jack. All of our activities and the decodable texts and passages are centered around this lesson right here. This is lesson 44, and it works with UFLI. So if you do use UFLI, you're able to kind of pair this with what you may be already using if you need more resources. And again, the skill is the CK digraph. And so this warm-up section right here will explain the past lessons that have already been taught. So you can see letters have been taught, R blends, L blends, the floss rule, AL, L, OLL, and ULL. And so for this section, you can use a blending board, you can use letter cards, you could use both, whatever you feel like fits best for your students. And this should really only be about 3 minutes. It's really just a quick drill. And, if you have a blending board up, your students are just quickly blending a few words or letter sounds or whatever it is that you feel like your students may need practice on. You don't have to go through, all of the letters and all the R blends and all these words. You can really kind of make it your own. So this is where that notes box would come in handy. So maybe you just want to have a handful of, letters that your students need extra practice with. Maybe add in, 1 or 2 words with, the R blend or an L blend, focus on the floss rule, whatever you feel like your students may need warm up with. And so another thing to note is that you can use this as a phonemic awareness activity where, students are just listening and giving you sounds. Or if you do choose to use that blending board, it becomes more of like a phonics warm up where they're actually reading and looking at the letters and the words with you. Okay, so after the warm up, the students will learn the phonics skill. Some lessons do review previous skills or they build upon old ones. Again, this comes from the UFLI scope and sequence. What you'll see right here is just kind of a quick little summary of what you can see to your students. And then we also have added just a little note of, something you may want to say, or maybe you want to show to your students, whether it be an anchor chart or, putting a list of words on the whiteboard. And again, this is the explicit teaching part for your students, especially when it's a new skill. And you should be spending about 5 minutes doing this. And it's your job as the teacher to use the clear, direct language to really make sure that you're aligning, to the science of reading principles. We do have a sample script, again, right here that can kind of help you. Feel free to add to it. Feel free to, change it up. You don't have to read it word for word, but it is just kind of a quick little, summary for you to be able to say to your students. Feel free to have your own visuals, whatever you feel like you need to help you teach that skill to your students. Some examples of resources you could use would be like sound articulation cards, whether you're using a sound wall or a vowel valley. Maybe you have mouth mirrors where you want your students to be able to look and see their mouths moving as they are, learning that sound. So it's whatever you feel you need to help you be successful in this area. And again, it's not too long, about 5 minutes for you to be able to do that explicit introduction. The rest of the lesson still works on this phonics skill. So, it's not just 5 minutes and we're done with the skill. They will still be working on it as we continue. This is just like the introduction. I'm trying to think of the word, like the hook kind of within your lesson. If you think about, those lesson plans, hooks your students into the content. Okay, so after phonics skill, this is when we kind of dive into those decodable words and heart words. And right here, we have listed decodable words and heart words that go along with the story. So your students will see these words when they read the story. Feel free to pick 2 or 3 from each category and use your word mapping materials with. We do have a section in the membership that has a word mapping video, so you can watch that training to see how to do the word mapping section. But it is important to really make sure that you do this word mapping with your students because it helps them connect the sounds, the spelling, and the meaning, and allows them to build their orthographic memory. And teaching these words, especially the heart words, explicitly really allows the students to, again, engage in that orthographic mapping, and they're not just remembering words. It's not just, students are just looking at words on flashcards and you're just drilling them. You really want your students to be able to map these words and understand the sounds that are unique to each letter pattern. And so just, again, make sure that you watch that word mapping video if you haven't already, so you can kind of see how to do this portion. The word mapping book and worksheet does, and especially in the kindergarten lessons, have a lot because, it's a foundational, skill for the students. There's a lot of words. But again, if you don't have a lot of time, just pick, 2 or 3 from each category just to make sure that your students are still engaging in that. This part of the lesson, really should take about 5 to 7 minutes. As your students get more used to the process and the routine of doing it, it will get faster. If you do feel like you need more time with a specific phonics skill, of course, feel free to do more than 2 to 3 words in each category. It's really up to you. But again, make sure that you watch that video in the membership so that it can help you be able to do the word mapping activities. Okay, so after word mapping, students will be doing word work, and this helps students see and build patterns. So during this part, you can use the letter cards and the teacher script that is provided in the word work section for each lesson. You could also just use whiteboard and markers depending on the time that you have for prep and whatnot. Essentially, all that we've listed right here are the words that your students will be building. And so you can think of this as like a word chain or a word ladder. Those are some really common words, but students will be, taking one word and manipulating that word to create more words. And so for these words, you can see students are working on the CK digraph. So you can see that, we're continuing to keep the CK digraph at the end, but we might be changing the beginning sound or the middle sound to, keep making more words. So again, this Practice builds flexibility and it helps students generalize spelling patterns. So they, are working on word families and also just seeing how that particular phonics skill can be used through multiple words. And this keeps it engaging for the students. Word work may take a little bit longer, especially if students are manipulating the word cards. So I generally would say maybe 7 to 8 minutes to do this. Again, your first couple times going through this, it might take a little bit longer because you may be getting used to the language of the script and your students may be, getting used to it as well, but it really shouldn't take, it shouldn't take the whole 30 minutes to do this particular part of your lesson. And if you're out of time again, just do a few words. And again, use the whiteboard. You don't have to use the entire letter cards and teacher script to do it. We do have a video in the membership as well for you to watch so that you can see how to use the script and kind of just see what it looks like when the students are manipulating the word cards. I know word work is a very exciting time for a lot of students. My students always really liked using the word cards to be able to build words. They always thought it was so fun. And again, it's that hands-on and that tactile learning experience that really helps the process of orthographic mapping too. Okay, so now it's time to apply that that skill in the text. So this is really, kind of the heart of the lesson. You want your students to be able to enjoy reading. And so kind of having that preview of the skill and the preview of the words really allows for them to be successful and feel confident. So, and what you can do during this time is start with kind of some pre-reading questions or just one question as we have listed here to build curiosity and comprehension. Before the reading section, we do have a little kind of blurb about the story. So for instance, you can see this one says, "Today our story is called Nick and Jack. In this story, Nick and Jack go on a camping trip filled with ducks, a pond, and even a surprise in the muck. As we read, listen for words that end with CK, which we use to spell the k sound right after a short vowel." So right there, you're introducing the story, you're kind of giving them something to look forward to, and then you're reviewing that phonics skill that we hit at the very beginning of the lesson, and you're reminding them that this is what we're working on. Here is, here's a quick little, reminder too that remember CK together makes a k sound and it's after a short vowel. So, students know, okay, we're going to be reading short vowel words. And again, there's some words for you to share with your students that they will see in the book. Each decodable reader has a little section in the not the cover page, but the next page after, where it has the decodable words and the heart words. So you can, of course, read through those words with your students as well. And then there is this little question that you can ask your students to kind of get them thinking. They can do a, think, pair, share, or, if you have time and it's a small group of students, you can have each student share. But it's just, before we begin, what do you think Nick and Jack will see or do at camp? So it's just a little way to do some predictions and get the students excited to read. So once you kind of do that pre-reading activity with your students, you can choose which way you'd like your students to read with you. We have, many different ways that we can have our students read. Some of the more common ways that I've read with my students with decodable text is they're whispering along with me or they're echo reading with me, whether I'm reading one sentence at a time and they repeat, or whether I'm reading one page at a time. There's been many different ways that I've done it before, and I'm sure you have many different ways that you do with your students. Very commonly as well, though, choral reading is another great one where they're just reading right along with you. And so, not only do you want them to work on reading those words in context, but you do want them to be practicing their fluency. It could take anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes to read the story. The stories are not super long, but, in real time, students might ask questions. They might go, "Oh my gosh, look at that picture." So, things come up as well. But really, if you have to cut time somewhere, make sure that you're not cutting time reading the decodable text, and, try to make sure that you, do 1 or 2 less words with word mapping or something like that to really make sure that you are trying to get to the decodable text as well. Okay, so after you read the story, the last page of each decodable reader has one comprehension question, and that we have listed here in our lesson plan area. And even though the decodable text is, we think of it as it's pretty simple. There's not much meat and potatoes to the story. Comprehension really does still matter. This really does allow the students to think about the meaning of the story and understand that reading is not just for being able to decode. We also want to read to comprehend. We do have optional comprehension resources in like a PDF form for you to print out and use with your students as well for extra support. And those can be found on the membership pages. So kind of the final step is dictation. And dictation is really important because it shows if students can transfer the phonics skills into writing. In kindergarten, we have this listed as an optional activity because it is a little bit more of, an advanced skill. So maybe not all of your students would be able to do it. Once students get into the first grade decodables, dictation is a part of the lesson. And so again, dictation does play an important role, especially as students grow and, become better readers and writers. This step helps solidify their connection between the sounds and the spelling. We do have a dictation training as well in the membership, so you can see how to complete the dictation activities as well. There's a teacher script that you can follow, so it should be fairly easy. And just to kind of show you the kindergarten optional section, if you have a group of higher performing students, or maybe you're reading this decodable with maybe some second or third grade students that need extra support or some gaps filled, you can use the dictation for your students. And there's just a little quick blurb right here that you can say. And then again, there's 3 words. They can use paper, pencil, whiteboard markers, and it allows for you to be able to check in real time. Okay, are they able to transfer what they hear into writing? Okay, so where can I find these in the membership? This computer screenshot right here kind of shows the home screen. So when you are in the Decodable Readers Vault, you will see all of these different little headers. And right here, this editable lesson plan section has like a blank template for you to download and print or type right there in the PowerPoint if you would like to kind of, use it and create your own and go off of what we have that, maybe you need some more time for something or you need to take something out, by all means, you can edit. And like Jenny said in the beginning, that editable area is where you can find that. And then when you go into each grade level, you will be able to see this. So this is Nick and Jack, and I kind of scroll down a little bit, but at the very top, you'll see like the cover page of the book. And right here, you can download all of these resources. And this is where you'll find the lesson plan, PDF form, PowerPoint form. We have the decodable readers in black and white. We have the comprehension activities, the word mapping activities, and the word work activities. And again, as they get into first grade, you'll see another section for dictation as well. If you're interested in using like the decodable passages, we do have those right here in a separate section as well.
So I hope you guys benefited from this, and we will see you next time.